Princess Kayla stood near the large window of her father's spaceship and looked out at the stars. Her skin sparkled with soft blue and silver light. Just like all members of the Vexori royal family, she was beautiful by any measure, with long flowing hair that seemed to shimmer like liquid starlight and eyes that glowed with a violet hue. But her face was cold as she stared at the space between Vexori territory and human space. She hated humans. She had always hated them, even though she had never actually met one in person. Her tutors had taught her the history, and that history was written in blood. 300 years ago, human ships had attacked a Vexori colony vessel without warning. 2,000 innocent Vexori people had died that day, including children. The humans had claimed it was a mistake, a misunderstanding, but the damage was done. Since that day, the two species had viewed each other with suspicion and hatred. Kayla believed every word she had been taught. Humans were violent creatures who destroyed their own planet before spreading into space. They fought wars constantly, killed each other over the smallest disagreements, and seemed incapable of the kind of peaceful civilization that the Vexori had built over thousands of years. In her mind, humans were little more than clever animals, dangerous and unpredictable. Her younger sister Lyra came to stand beside her. At only 16 years old, Lyra was curious about everything. She looked at the universe with wonder instead of suspicion. This worried Kayla greatly. "Do you think we will actually meet humans at the Peace Summit?" Lyra asked, her voice full of excitement rather than fear. Kayla frowned. "Unfortunately, yes. Father insists we attend this foolish gathering on Apex 7 Station. The human government wants to discuss trade agreements and border sharing, as if we could ever trust them. But sister, what if the old stories are wrong? What if humans have changed?" Lyra suggested carefully. Kayla turned to her sister sharply. "Changed? Lyra, their nature is violent. It runs in their blood. Just last month, human pirates attacked 3 of our merchant ships. They steal, they kill, they lie. This summit is a waste of time, but Father believes in diplomacy." She said the last word with clear disgust. "You should keep an open mind," Lyra said softly. "I will keep a watchful mind," Kayla corrected. "Someone in this family must protect our people from making foolish mistakes." The journey to Apex 7 took 2 days. The neutral station floated in empty space exactly halfway between Vexori and human territory. It was a massive structure, built by a third species who acted as mediators between different civilizations. The station could hold thousands of people and had everything needed for long diplomatic meetings. When their ship docked, Kayla made sure her guards stayed close to Lyra at all times. She did not trust this place. Too many different species mixed together here, and security could never be perfect. Her father, Emperor Theron, led their delegation with his usual calm dignity, but Kayla remained tense. The summit began with boring speeches. Representatives from both sides talked about peace, cooperation, and mutual benefit. Kayla sat through it all with a blank expression, not believing a single word the humans said. She studied them carefully from across the large conference room. They looked so different from her people, with their plain skin that came in various shades of brown and pink, their simple hair, their shorter lifespans that made them seem rushed and impatient. One human delegate, a woman with dark hair, spoke about cultural exchange programs. She suggested that young people from both species could study together, learn about each other, break down old prejudices. Several Vexori in the room seemed interested in this idea, nodding along. Kayla wanted to stand up and shout at them all. Did they forget the massacre? Did they forget that humans could not be trusted? But she remained silent, her hands gripped tightly in her lap. On the second day of the summit, Lyra asked permission to tour the station with a group of other young people. There were Vexori students there, along with humans who were part of some educational program. Kayla immediately refused. "Absolutely not. You will stay where I can see you." But their father overheard and disagreed. "Kayla, let your sister go. She will be safe. There are guards everywhere, and this is exactly the kind of interaction we came here to encourage. How can we build peace if our young people never meet?" Kayla wanted to argue, but she could not disobey her father in public. She watched helplessly as Lyra joined the group of mixed-species students and walked away toward another section of the station. Kayla made sure 2 guards followed at a distance, but it did little to calm her worry. She tried to focus on the afternoon session, but her mind kept wandering to her sister. Something felt wrong. The feeling grew stronger as the hours passed. until it became an almost physical sensation in her chest. Then the alarm started. The sound was deafening. A harsh wailing that echoed through every corridor of the station. Red emergency lights began flashing. The conference room erupted into chaos as delegates from various species jumped to their feet, shouting questions. A security officer rushed in, his face panicked. "We are under attack. Crover Syndicate pirates have breached the outer defenses. All delegates must evacuate immediately." Kayla's blood turned to ice. The Crovar Syndicate was the most dangerous criminal organization in this part of space. They kidnapped people for ransom, stole anything valuable, and killed anyone who got in their way. And Lyra was somewhere on the station, away from proper protection. "Where is the student tour group?" Kayla demanded, grabbing the security officer's arm. "I don't know. Communications are down. We need to get you to the evacuation pods now." "Not without my sister." Kayla pushed past him and ran toward the door. Her own guards followed, weapons drawn. Emperor Theron called after her, but she did not stop. The corridors were filled with smoke and running people. Explosions rocked the station, making the floor shake under her feet. Kayla ran faster than she had ever run in her life, her heart pounding with fear. She had to find Lyra. Nothing else mattered. She turned a corner and nearly collided with 3 Vexori guards who were supposed to be protecting her sister. "Where is Princess Lyra?" Kyla shouted. The guards looked terrified. "She was separated from us when the attack started. We have been searching, but the station is breaking apart. Sections are sealing off automatically." Kayla felt her world tilting. Her baby sister, lost somewhere in this dying station with murderous pirates hunting for valuable hostages. A Vexori princess would be worth a fortune to the Crover Syndicate. She pushed forward, checking every corridor, every room. The station groaned and shuddered around her. Time was running out. Jake Morrison was having the worst day of his life, and that was saying something. He had never wanted to come to this stupid peace summit in the first place. He was just an engineer from Earth's Proxima colony, a guy who fixed machines and avoided politics. But his boss got sick at the last minute, and someone had to monitor the human delegation's equipment during the summit. That someone ended up being Jake, purely because he was the only engineer available who had a valid travel permit. Now the station was exploding around him. Pirates were shooting at everything that moved, and Jake was completely unarmed. He ran through the smoke-filled corridors, trying to remember the emergency evacuation routes from the station map he had barely glanced at 2 days ago. The emergency announcement kept repeating in multiple languages. "All personnel evacuate to Docking Bay 7. Station integrity failing. This is not a drill." Jake rounded a corner and heard something that made him freeze. It was a small voice, scared and crying, coming from behind a collapsed wall section. The voice was speaking in a language he did not understand, but fear sounded the same in every language. Every logical part of his brain told him to keep running. The station was dying. He needed to reach the evacuation pods before they all launched without him. But Jake had never been good at listening to the logical part of his brain. His feet carried him toward the sound instead of away from it. He dropped to his knees beside the twisted metal and peered through a gap. On the other side, he saw a young girl with shimmering blue skin and silver hair. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural violet light, and she was clearly not human. She was Vexori, one of the aliens whose people supposedly hated humans with a burning passion. For a moment, Jake hesitated. Everything he had heard about the Vexori suggested they would rather die than accept help from a human. They considered humans to be barely better than animals. But then the girl looked up and their eyes met, and Jake saw the same terror he would see in any frightened child. "Hey, can you understand me?" Jake called out. The girl responded in broken human standard language. "Please help. I cannot breathe well. The air is bad." Jake's engineer brain kicked into gear. Vexori needed higher oxygen levels than humans. The station's emergency systems had switched to default settings, which meant human standard atmosphere. She was slowly suffocating. He pulled his emergency kit from his belt and grabbed the portable oxygen concentrator. It was designed for humans, but it might help her enough to buy some time. "I'm going to pass something through to you. Put it over your face like this." He demonstrated with his hands, then pressed the blue button. "Understand?" Her shaking hands reached through the gap and took the device. A few seconds later, color started returning to her face. She looked less like she was about to pass out. "Thank you," she whispered. "But I'm still stuck." Jake examined the collapsed section carefully. A support beam had buckled during the attack, creating a cage of metal around the girl. He would need serious cutting equipment to free her, and he had nothing but a basic multi-tool. The sound of weapons fire was getting closer. The pirates were sweeping through the station looking for anything valuable. "What's your name?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice calm while his mind raced through possibilities. "Lyra. I am Princess Lyra of House Vexor." Jake's eyes went wide. A princess? Of course she was, because this day needed to get even more complicated. "Okay, Princess Lyra, my name is Jake. I'm going to get you out of here, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She nodded, her glowing eyes fixed on him with desperate hope. Jake looked around frantically and spotted an access panel near the ceiling. If he could reroute emergency power to the hydraulic systems in this section, he might be able to lift the collapsed beam just enough for Lyra to squeeze through. It was risky and probably stupid, but it was the only plan he had. He climbed onto the pile of debris, his hands already pulling out his multi-tool to open the panel. Inside was a mess of wiring and circuits. Normally, Jake would take his time with something like this, carefully checking each connection. But he did not have time. The station was coming apart, and those pirates would be here any minute. His hands moved fast, pulling wires and reconnecting them in a new configuration. Sweat dripped into his eyes, making it hard to see. An explosion somewhere nearby made the whole corridor shake, and Jake nearly fell off his perch. "Why are you helping me?" Lyra asked quietly from below. "Your people and mine hate each other." Jake did not stop working as he answered. "Where I come from, we have a simple rule. You help people who need help. Doesn't matter what they look like or where they're from. You just help." "That is not what I was taught about humans," Lyra said, confusion clear in her voice. "Yeah, well," Jake grunted, connecting the final wire. "Maybe what you were taught was wrong." He activated the hydraulic system. Motors groaned and complained. The collapsed beam began to move, lifting inch by painful inch. Jake could hear the system straining, could smell something burning. This was not going to last long. "Now. Move now," Jake shouted. Lyra squeezed through the gap, her thin frame barely making it before the hydraulics gave out with a screech of tortured metal. The beam crashed back down and Jake jumped off the debris pile, catching Lyra as she stumbled forward. "We need to run," Jake said. "The evacuation pods are—" He never finished the sentence. 3 crowbar pirates came around the corner, their weapons already pointed at Jake and Lyra. The crowbar were an ugly species, covered in rough scales and cybernetic implants. These 3 looked especially mean, with scars crossing their faces and the cold eyes of people who killed for a living. "Well, what do we have here?" the lead pirate said in rough human standard. His smile showed too many teeth. "A human and a pretty little Vexori. You wouldn't happen to be someone important, would you, little girl?" Lyra moved closer to Jake, trembling. Jake slowly raised his hands, his mind racing. He had no weapons, no combat training, and no chance of winning a fight against 3 armed pirates. But he had to do something. "There's no need for anyone to get hurt," Jake said, keeping his voice steady even though his heart was hammering in his chest. "Take whatever you want from the station. Just let us go." The lead pirate laughed. "The Vexori princess is worth more than anything else on this station. We'll be taking her. You, however, are worthless, so I'll just kill you now." The pirate raised his weapon and Jake knew he had only seconds left to live. In that moment, he did not think about himself. He thought about Lyra, about how she trusted him, about how he had promised to get her out. He could not let these monsters take her. Jake did the only thing he could think of. He lunged forward, reaching for the nearest pirate's weapon. It was a desperate move, probably suicidal, but it was all he had. His hands closed around the barrel of the gun just as someone else appeared in the corridor. Princess Kayla came around the corner like a force of nature. She had a plasma rifle in her hands and murder in her glowing eyes. She fired 3 shots in rapid succession, each one perfectly placed. The first pirate dropped instantly. The second managed to get off a wild shot before Kayla's second shot caught him in the chest. The lead pirate spun to face this new threat, which gave Jake the opening he needed. Jake twisted the weapon in the pirate's hands and pulled hard. The surprise move worked. The pirate lost his grip and Jake ended up holding an alien weapon he had no idea how to use. But he pointed it in the right direction and that was enough. The last pirate, seeing himself outgunned, turned and ran. Silence fell over the corridor. Jake stood there, breathing hard, still holding the pirate weapon awkwardly. Kayla stood 10 feet away, her own weapon trained on him now instead of the pirate's. Her face was a mask of cold fury. "Step away from my sister," Kayla commanded, her voice like ice. "Sister, no," Lyra protested, moving to stand between them. "His name is Jake. He saved my life. He stayed when he could have run. He risked everything for me." Kyla's eyes narrowed as she looked at Jake. He could see her mind working, trying to fit what she was seeing into what she believed about humans. It clearly did not fit well. "He is human," Kayla said flatly, as if that explained everything wrong with the universe. Kayla stared at the human standing in front of her, trying to understand what she was seeing. He was covered in dirt and sweat, holding a crowbar weapon like he barely knew which end was dangerous. Her sister stood next to him, defending him, and 3 dead pirates lay on the floor, proof that something had happened here that did not fit Kayla's understanding of the universe. "We don't have time for this," Jake said, lowering the weapon carefully and setting it on the ground. "This station is going to tear itself apart in the next 10 minutes. We can argue about what terrible creatures humans are later, but right now we need to move." The station shuddered violently, as if agreeing with him. Somewhere far away, another explosion boomed through the corridors. Emergency lights flickered and went out, leaving only the red glow of backup systems. Kayla wanted to hate him. She wanted to grab her sister and leave this human behind. But Lyra was looking at her with pleading eyes, and the human was right about one thing. They were running out of time. "Fine," Kayla said through gritted teeth. "Lead the way to the evacuation pods. But if this is some kind of trap, human, I will make sure you regret it." "My name is Jake Morrison," he said, already moving down the corridor. "And if I wanted to trap you, this would be a really complicated way to do it." Kayla followed, keeping Lyra between herself and Jake. She did not trust him, but she had to admit he seemed to know where he was going. He led them through corridors that were filling with smoke, around sections that had collapsed completely, and past fires that burned with strange colors from ruptured chemical tanks. "How do you know this path?" Kayla demanded. "I'm an engineer," Jake called back over his shoulder. "I spent 2 days studying this station's systems. I know which sections are most likely to fail first and which corridors should still be stable." "Should be stable?" Kayla repeated. "Nothing is guaranteed when a station is exploding," Jake said. "But this route gives us the best chance." They ran through a large open area that had once been a beautiful garden space. Now plants were wilting from the toxic smoke, and the artificial sky above showed cracks spreading across the dome. Jake suddenly held up his hand, stopping them. "Wait, listen," Kayla heard it too. Footsteps, heavy boots on metal floors, multiple people moving in a coordinated pattern. "Pirates searching for survivors back," Jake whispered. "There's another way, but it was too late." 4 more crowbar pirates emerged from different corridors surrounding them. These ones looked smarter than the first group, more organized. Their leader was a huge crowbar with more cybernetic parts than original body parts. "Princess Kayla," the leader said, his mechanical voice grinding like broken machinery. "How fortunate. 2 Vexori princesses will bring us twice the ransom. And look, you even have a pet human with you." Kayla raised her plasma rifle, but she knew the situation was bad. 4 armed enemies, multiple angles of attack, and she had to protect Lyra. Even her combat training might not be enough. "I'll take the 2 on the left," Jake whispered beside her. "You take the 2 on the right." Kayla glanced at him in surprise. "You have no weapon and no training. Stay behind me." "I may not have training," Jake said, "but I'm pretty good at improvising." Before Kayla could respond, Jake grabbed a damaged support cable hanging from the ceiling and yanked hard. The entire section of ceiling came crashing down on the 2 pirates on the left, burying them in debris and sparking electrical equipment. Kayla used the distraction. She shot the pirate on the right, her aim perfect despite the chaos. But the cybernetic leader was fast. He moved before she could adjust her aim, closing the distance between them in 2 powerful strides. His fist, more metal than flesh, swung at her head. Jake tackled him from the side. It was like watching a child attack an adult. But Jake's unexpected move knocked the leader off balance just enough. Kayla rolled away and came up shooting. Her blast caught the leader in his cybernetic spine, and he went down screaming. The 4th pirate had been about to shoot Lyra. Kayla's heart stopped as she saw the weapon aimed at her baby sister. But Lyra was not helpless. She grabbed a piece of broken metal pipe and swung it with all her strength, catching the pirate across the face. He stumbled, and Kayla finished him with a precise shot. Silence again. 4 more bodies. Jake was on the floor, breathing hard but unhurt. Kayla's hands were shaking now, the adrenaline starting to fade. They had been lucky. Too lucky. Their luck would run out soon. Everyone okay? Jake asked, climbing to his feet. Yes, Lyra said. Thanks to you again. Kayla said nothing. She was too busy trying to understand how a human with no weapons and no training had just saved them all. Everything she knew about humans said they were violent and selfish. They did not sacrifice themselves for aliens they had just met. They did not stay calm in crisis. They did not think of others before themselves, but this human had done all of those things. We need to keep moving, Jake said, as calm as if they were discussing the weather instead of running for their lives. Docking Bay 7 should be just ahead. They ran again. The station was dying around them, groaning and shrieking like a wounded animal. Walls buckled. Floors cracked. The air itself seemed to be getting thinner as life support systems failed section by section. They finally reached Docking Bay 7. The last evacuation pod sat waiting, its door open, but Kayla's heart sank when she saw the scene in front of her. There were 9 other survivors there, 3 humans and 6 Vexori, all arguing frantically. The pod only holds 8 people safely, a Vexori official was shouting. Someone has to stay behind. I have children at home, a human diplomat pleaded. I need to get back to them. Jake walked straight to the pod's control panel and started working. His fingers flew over the interface, pulling up systems that Kayla did not even know existed. What are you doing? She asked. Overriding the safety limits, Jake said without stopping. This pod can hold 12 people if we really pack in and disable some of the comfort systems. We'll burn through oxygen faster and it will be uncomfortable, but everyone here can fit. That's illegal, the Vexori official sputtered. The safety protocols exist for a reason. Jake looked up at him and his eyes were hard. You know what else is illegal? Leaving people behind to die when there's another option. Everyone get in the pod. Now. His voice carried command that made even Kayla obey without thinking. They packed into the small pod, bodies pressed together with no space to move. Kayla found herself squeezed against Jake's side, close enough to feel his heartbeat still racing from their escape. He smelled like sweat and smoke, distinctly human, and she tried not to think about how he had just saved her life for the second time. Jake sealed the door and hit the launch button. The pod shot away from the station, just as a series of massive explosions rippled through its structure. Through the small viewport, they watched Apex 7 tear itself apart in a brilliant cascade of fire and debris. If they had been 30 seconds slower, they would have died with it. Is everyone all right? Jake asked, checking the pod's systems. Oxygen levels are going to drop faster than normal. We all need to stay calm and breathe slowly. Help should reach us in about 40 minutes. One of the Vexori survivors, an older male with ceremonial robes, looked at Jake with new eyes. You saved us all, human. I am Senator Vorath. You have earned the gratitude of the Vexori Empire. I just did what anyone would do, Jake said, uncomfortable with the attention. Kayla, pressed against the wall with no way to escape, found those words echoing in her mind. Just did what anyone would do. But would anyone? Would she have risked her life repeatedly for strangers? For enemies? She looked at Jake in the cramped space. His face was dirty and tired, but his eyes were kind. He was checking on each person in the pod, making sure everyone was breathing okay, offering words of comfort to those who were panicking. This was not the behavior of a violent savage. This was not the actions of someone inferior. Lyra squeezed Kayla's hand. He is not what you expected, is he? Kayla shook her head slowly, unable to find words. Her entire worldview was crumbling around her, and she did not know how to feel about it. She had spent her whole life hating humans, believing them to be monsters. But this human had proven himself to be braver, kinder, and more selfless than many Vexori she knew. What did that mean? If she was wrong about this human, could she be wrong about all humans? And if she was wrong about humans, what else had she been wrong about? The rescue ships arrived 39 minutes later. Both Vexori and human vessels responded to the distress call, working together to recover all the evacuation pods. When their pod door opened, Kayla expected to simply say goodbye to Jake Morrison and never see him again. But Lyra had different plans. Lyra stood in front of her father, Emperor Theron, with her arms crossed and her chin raised in a gesture that reminded everyone she was indeed a princess. They were aboard the royal flagship, safe and clean after medical checks confirmed no one was seriously injured. But Lyra was not done making demands. Father, you must meet him properly, Lyra insisted. Jake Morrison saved my life. He deserves recognition from the Empire. Kayla stood nearby, saying nothing. Part of her agreed with Lyra. Part of her still wanted to pretend the whole thing never happened so she could go back to her comfortable hatred of humans. But that was becoming impossible. He was just in the right place, Kayla said weakly, even though the words tasted like lies in her mouth. Lyra turned on her sister with fire in her eyes. He was in the right place because he chose to be there. When he could have run to save himself, he stayed to save me. When he could have left me trapped, he risked everything to free me. When pirates tried to take me, he threw himself at them even though he had no weapon. That is not luck, sister. That is who he is. Emperor Theron listened to this exchange with interest. He was wise and had ruled for many years. What do you think, Kayla? You were there. You saw his actions. Kayla felt trapped by the question. She could not lie, not to her father. He saved Lyra's life multiple times. He also helped save my life and the lives of 9 other people in that evacuation pod. His actions were brave and selfless. The words came out stiff, like she was reporting facts rather than acknowledging a person. But you still do not trust him, her father observed. He is human, Kayla said, as if that explained everything. And for her entire life it had explained everything. Bring him to me, the Emperor commanded. I wish to meet this human who has caused my eldest daughter such confusion. Jake was brought to the royal flagship despite his protests. He looked uncomfortable in his clean clothes, standing in the middle of the ornate Vexori ship. Everything around him sparkled with crystal and precious metals. Jake looked completely out of place, a simple human engineer surrounded by alien luxury. Senator Vorath accompanied Jake, along with several other Vexori who had been in the evacuation pod. They all spoke up for him, praising his quick thinking and bravery. Jake looked more and more uncomfortable as the praise continued. Honestly, I don't need recognition, Jake said when Senator Vorath finally finished. I'm just happy everyone is safe. I should probably head back to Proxima Station and get back to work. Absolutely not, Senator Vorath declared. Your actions deserve recognition. You have done more for human-Vexori relations in one day than diplomats have done in decades. 3 days later, Jake found himself on Vexara Prime, the Vexori homeworld. He stood in a throne room that looked like it was carved from a single enormous crystal. Light refracted through the walls, creating rainbows that danced across every surface. The capital city spread out below, all crystal towers and floating gardens. It was beautiful in a way that made Jake understand why the Vexori thought so highly of themselves. Emperor Theron sat on his throne, looking every bit the powerful ruler. Kayla stood at his right hand, her face carefully blank. Lyra stood at his left, smiling encouragingly at Jake. Jake Morrison of Earth, the Emperor's voice filled the chamber. My daughter lives because of your courage. Name your reward, and if it is within my power, you shall have it. Jake shifted uncomfortably. He really hated formal situations. Your Majesty, I really don't need a reward. Seeing Lyra safe is enough. Surprised murmurs rippled through the assembled Vexori nobles. Apparently, that was not the expected response. Nevertheless, Emperor Theron continued, the Empire owes you a debt. I offer you the Star of Valor, our highest civilian honor. I also offer you a position as cultural liaison between our peoples. Your presence here could help bridge the divide that has separated us for so long. Jake opened his mouth to politely refuse when Kayla spoke up suddenly. Father, no, her voice echoed through the chamber. Everyone stared at her in shock, including Jake. You object to honoring the man who saved your sister? The Emperor asked, one eyebrow raised. Kayla took a deep breath. I object to treating him like he belongs to us now. Jake Morrison has a life, a home, a career, people who care about him. We cannot simply decide his future and expect him to obey. He is not our subject. He owes us nothing. She paused, then added more quietly. Perhaps that is something we need to understand about humans. They help without expecting to be owned in return. The silence that followed was profound. Jake stared at Kayla, seeing something in her face that had not been there before. She was trying in her own way to stand up for him, to acknowledge that he had a right to choose his own path. Emperor Theron smiled slightly. My daughter makes a wise point. Very well, Jake Morrison. The offer stands, but the choice is entirely yours. Take time to consider it. You are welcome to stay on Vexara Prime as our guest while you decide. Later that evening, Kayla found Jake standing on a balcony that overlooked the city. The sun was setting, painting the crystal towers in shades of gold and red. Jake seemed lost in thought. That was unexpected, Jake said when he noticed her approaching. You defending me like that? Kayla joined him at the railing but kept a careful distance between them. I have spent my entire life believing humans were inferior, violent and selfish and dangerous. You have challenged every single assumption I held. I'm just one guy, Jake said. I'm nothing special. There are millions of humans just like me. That is what troubles me most, Kayla admitted. If you were some exceptional human, someone rare and unusual, I could keep my old beliefs. But you are ordinary, as you say, which means there must be many more like you. And if I was wrong about humans, she trailed off, unable or unwilling to finish the thought. Then what else might you be wrong about? Jake finished softly. They stood in silence as the sun disappeared and the city's lights began to glow. Gardens filled with bioluminescent plants lit up like stars had fallen to earth. I was cruel to you during the escape, Kayla said finally. You risked your life for my sister and I treated you with nothing but suspicion and contempt. I was wrong. That is not easy for me to say. I get it, Jake said. Having your whole worldview challenged like that? That must be terrifying. Takes real courage to admit you might be wrong. Kayla glanced at him. Will you stay? As cultural liaison, Lyra talks about you constantly. She wants to learn about human customs and culture, and I think... She hesitated, then pushed forward. I think perhaps I have much to learn as well. Jake studied her face in the soft light. Can I ask you something first? Why do the Vexori hate humans so much? Kayla's expression darkened. 300 years ago, human ships encountered a Vexori colony vessel. There was a misunderstanding, a failure to communicate properly. The humans thought the Vexori ship was hostile and attacked first. 2,000 Vexori colonists died that day. Many of them were children. That tragedy has defined our relationship ever since. I didn't know about that, Jake said quietly. I'm sorry for what happened to your people. It was not you who attacked them, Kayla said. It was humans who lived and died long before you were born. Just as those humans should not define all humans forever. That is what I am beginning to understand. She took a breath and looked directly at him. So I ask again, will you stay and help us learn that lesson? Jake looked out at the alien city, thinking of his small apartment on Proxima Station. Thinking of his routine job and his predictable life. Then he thought of Lyra's frightened face when she was trapped. He thought of Kayla's transformation from hatred to this tentative understanding. He thought about maybe making a real difference. I'll stay, Jake said, but only if you agree to teach me about Vexori culture too. This learning thing needs to go both ways. For the first time since they met, Kayla smiled. It was a genuine smile that changed her whole face, making her look younger and less burdened. Agreed, Jake Morrison. Let us learn from each other. Over the following weeks, Jake settled into his new role. It was strange at first. Many Vexori still viewed him with suspicion or curiosity. Some refused to speak to him at all. But others, especially younger Vexori, were fascinated by the human who had defied their stereotypes. Kayla kept her promise. She taught him about Vexori history, art, philosophy, and customs. In return, Jake shared stories about human culture, explaining things that Vexori found confusing or even barbaric. They debated and argued and slowly built something that neither expected. They built a friendship. 6 months passed like a strange dream. Jake never expected to still be on Vexara Prime, but somehow the temporary position had become permanent. His role as cultural liaison kept him busy every day. He helped arrange exchange programs between human and Vexori universities. He mediated small disputes before they became big problems. He gave presentations about human culture to groups of curious Vexori students who asked endless questions. The strangest part was becoming something like a celebrity. Young Vexori wanted to meet the human who had saved their princess. They asked for his opinion on everything from music to politics. Some of the older Vexori still looked at him with distrust, but even they could not deny that his presence was changing things. Slowly, carefully, the wall of hatred between the two species was developing cracks. But the biggest change was his friendship with Kayla. They met almost every day now, officially to discuss diplomatic matters, but their conversations had grown into something much deeper. They talked about philosophy and dreams and fears. They shared stories and jokes and comfortable silences. Jake taught Kayla about human customs like birthday parties and pizza. Kayla taught Jake about Vexori meditation practices and their complex musical traditions. Lyra noticed, of course. She cornered Kayla in the palace library one afternoon with a knowing smile. "You are falling for him," Lyra said, not bothering with subtle approaches. Kayla looked up from her reports, trying to appear casual. I do not know what you mean. Jake is a colleague and friend. You light up whenever he enters a room, Lyra pointed out. You smile more in one conversation with him than you used to smile in a whole month. You have stopped making any negative comments about humans. Face it, sister. You care about him. Kayla set down her tablet and sighed. Even if that were true, it would be impossible. The court would never accept a relationship between a Vexori princess and a human. The scandal alone would damage everything we are trying to build. Since when do you care about scandal? Lyra challenged. You have spent your whole life doing exactly what you believed was right, no matter what anyone thought. Why stop now? Before Kayla could answer, emergency alarms began wailing through the palace. Both sisters ran to the command center where their father was already receiving urgent reports. What has happened? Kayla demanded. A military officer looked grim. The Krovar Syndicate. They have launched a massive coordinated attack on multiple border colonies, both Vexori and human settlements. Our intelligence suggests this is revenge for our increased security after the Apex 7 incident. They are targeting civilian populations. Kayla felt ice in her veins. Which colonies? New Vexara and Proxima Station are both under heavy assault. Proxima Station, Jake's home. The place where he had lived before coming to Vexara Prime. Jake had friends there, people he cared about. Kayla turned and ran from the command center, knowing exactly where she would find him. Jake was in the human embassy wing, already packing a bag with grim determination on his face. Other human civilians were preparing for evacuation. I have to go back, Jake said when he saw Kayla. Those are my people, my friends. I can't just stay here safe while they are dying. You will be killed, Kayla said flatly. Our intelligence reports say the Krovar are not taking prisoners this time. They plan to destroy the entire station. Then I die with my people, Jake said simply. I can't abandon them. You of all people should understand that. You could not abandon Lyra. Kayla grabbed his arm. You are one engineer. What difference can you possibly make? Jake met her eyes. Maybe none, but I have to try. She did understand, which is why, 20 minutes later, she found herself commandeering a military attack ship with Jake and 6 Vexori Special Forces soldiers. She did this directly against her father's orders, but she did not care about that right now. This is treason, one of the soldiers said nervously as they launched from the palace hangar. Yes, Kayla said calmly, plotting the fastest route to Proxima Station. When we return, I will accept whatever punishment my father decides. But right now, people are dying. We are going to stop that. Jake strapped into the co-pilot seat, looking at Kayla with an expression she could not quite read. You didn't have to do this. Yes, I did, Kayla said quietly. 6 months ago, I would have let you go alone. I would have considered it proof that humans are reckless and emotional. But you taught me something important. Courage and emotion are not weaknesses. Sometimes they are the only things that truly matter. They reached Proxima Station in the middle of chaos. Krovar fighters swarmed everywhere, while civilian ships tried desperately to evacuate. The station itself was badly damaged, with entire sections venting atmosphere into space. Jake's knowledge of the station combined with Kayla's tactical training made them an effective team. Jake knew every system, every backup protocol, every hidden passage. Kayla knew how to fight, how to command, how to turn desperate odds into victory. Together they coordinated the defense, directed evacuation ships to safe routes, and even led a daring attack on the Krovar command vessel that disrupted their entire assault. When human and Vexori military reinforcements finally arrived, they found the station damaged but standing. Thousands of lives had been saved because a Vexori princess and a human engineer refused to give up. The aftermath was complicated. Emperor Theron was furious with Kayla for disobeying orders, but he could not ignore the results. Public opinion on both human and Vexori worlds had shifted dramatically. Images of Kayla and Jake fighting side by side had spread everywhere. People saw a Vexori princess risking everything to save human civilians. They saw a human and Vexori working together as equals. You have created quite a problem, Emperor Theron told Kayla in a private meeting. Half the court demands you be punished for disobedience. The other half wants to give you medals for heroism. I did what was necessary, Kayla said, standing straight despite her exhaustion. You did, her father agreed, just as Jake Morrison has consistently done what was necessary, despite personal risk and despite having every reason to stay safe. He paused, studying his daughter carefully. "Tell me honestly, Kayla, what are your intentions regarding this human?" Kayla had been dreading this question. But after everything that had happened, she was done hiding the truth. "I intend to continue working with him, learning from him, and if he feels the same way I do, then I intend to love him. I know the court will hate it. I know it will cause scandal. But I do not care anymore." She waited for her father's anger. Instead, he smiled. "Your mother would have liked him. She always said that true nobility is measured by actions, not blood. If you choose Jake Morrison, you have my blessing. Let the court complain. They will adjust eventually." Kayla found Jake on the same balcony where they had first truly talked, watching another sunset paint the Crystal City in brilliant colors. "Your father is being very understanding about the whole treason thing," Jake said when she joined him. "I expected to be thrown off the planet." "He surprises me sometimes," Kayla admitted. She stood close to Jake now, closer than proper behavior allowed. "You have completely disrupted my life, Jake Morrison. You challenged everything I believed. You made me question my deepest assumptions. You forced me to grow and change in ways I never expected." "Sorry about that," Jake said, but he was smiling. "Do not apologize," Kayla said, taking his hand. It was the first time she had initiated such contact. His hand was warm and rough from work, distinctly human. "Because in disrupting my life, you also saved it. Not from pirates, but from something worse. You saved me from my own hatred. You showed me that humans are not the enemy. That different does not mean inferior. That courage and kindness exist in every species if we are willing to see it." Jake turned to face her fully, their fingers still intertwined. "And you showed me that prejudice is not always simple hatred. Sometimes it comes from real pain, from real history. You taught me that even the deepest wounds can heal if people are brave enough to try." "So where do we go from here?" Kayla asked, her heart beating faster than it ever had in combat. "Together," Jake said softly, "wherever that leads us." Kayla leaned closer and their lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home and stepping into the unknown all at once. It was tender and careful, a bridge being built between two different worlds. When they finally pulled apart, Kayla rested her forehead against Jake's. "This will not be easy. There will be people on both sides who hate us for this. They will say we are betraying our species." "Let them say it," Jake replied. "We know the truth. Love does not betray anyone. Hate does." News of their relationship spread quickly. The reaction was exactly as complicated as Kayla predicted. Some Vexori were outraged, calling it a disgrace to the royal family. Some humans thought Jake was crazy for getting involved with an alien princess. But there were others, many others, who saw something different. They saw hope. They saw proof that old hatreds could be overcome. They saw two people from different worlds choosing to build something new together. Young Vexori started questioning the old stories about human violence. Young humans started learning about Vexori culture with genuine interest instead of suspicion. Cultural exchange programs that had seemed impossible a year ago were now filling up with eager participants from both species.